All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the February DFW, Austin, San Antonio, Greater Texas TUG. We are super excited for today's meeting and are happy that each one of you guys are on the call today. My name is Rachel Mason. I'm with Technion Data Solutions, who along with Zeomatrix helped sponsor this TUG. And I have the lovely privilege of being your host today, so excited. A special shout out to Kobe Sparks, Colin Gick, Iman Alvani, PJ Hoke, and the Greater Texas TUG Advisory Council for planning and helping put together today's meeting. It would not be possible without you guys. So first off, I'd love to see where everyone is tuning in from. Since I know this is virtual, I would love to take a moment for you to throw up in the chat what city or state you're coming in from or tuning in from, and would love to see. So just take a moment to locate your chat at the bottom of your Zoom panel, and let's see where everyone's coming from. Awesome, lots of Texas. I see some Oklahoma, California, awesome. Detroit, Seattle. That's exciting. Oh my gosh, we got people from everywhere. Missouri, very cool. So as you guys are filling out the chat, as you can see, we are using a Zoom meeting platform for this TUG. And so feel free to turn your cameras on so we can see your beautiful face. And I also encourage you to utilize the chat throughout the TUG to connect with your peers. And real quick, I'm going to go over some housekeeping. The next TUG will be March 11th. So mark your calendars. The invite for that will be coming out very soon. And then for today's agenda, we have a special guest, Anna Foard, who is going to be presenting on LODs. And we will have a quick Q&A session after her presentation. So while she's presenting, feel free to submit questions in the chat and we will answer those once she finishes. We will also go over our annual TUG survey real quick before jumping into a Makeover Thursday exercise. And so I think you guys will be very excited for that. We're going to review 5 vizzes today, and then you're going to vote on your favorite viz, and the winner is going to get some surprise Tableau swag. So get excited. And then, of course, at the end, feel free to stay on for a few minutes to continue to reach out to your peers and connect with someone new. And so at this time, I'm going to stop screen share here. And I will introduce our special guest, Anna Foard. Anna is the Director of Training at Data Crunch Corporation, a data analytics consulting and training firm who specializes in Tableau. A former math and statistics teacher, her non-traditional career journey sparked a passion for empowering individuals with education and data literacy. Outside of work, Anna is a co-leader of the Atlanta Tableau user group and enjoys running, mountain biking, CrossFit, rock climbing, and any escape into the outdoors, which honestly, same, especially with the great weather we've had the past few days in Texas. So thank you so much for being here today, Anna, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great.
All right, good. Yeah, we've had great weather in Atlanta too. Today it's gorgeous out, so I had to sit outside and have lunch, which is why I think I was like scrambling. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't finish my slides. So I mean, just being honest. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to do the best I can to explain LODs and not talk your ear off. Like she said, I was a math teacher. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here too. So give me a second. Even though I was a teacher for a long time, I'm still not so great at doing 2 things at one time. I did a better job at it actually for a very long time when I was a teacher. I was better at it when they were like kids yelling and talking like, can I get this? Can I have this now, yesterday, while I'm sending an email to admin about something else? So, so now as like things slowed down, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have to do two things at one time all the time. Yeah, I taught math and stats in Atlanta. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. Here we go. And that was after, so my undergraduate was in business. I'm from the University of Georgia, go Dogs. And I went to DC and I worked in some analytics firm. It was really before they used the word analytics. We really didn't say that in the early 2000s. I mean, we were analysts, and it was best practices research. So stats is really the way I went. And when I went to grad school at LSU, another SEC school, I decided to focus on statistics education. So since 2000, I mean, honestly, I started teaching at LSU as an since 2003, I've been teaching math and stats in some capacity. So for 14 years, I taught high school level, mostly AP stats. And that's how I actually got introduced to Tableau. I told them, hey, you're not going to walk into a classroom with just a graphing calculator. So, I mean, you'll walk into a classroom with it, but you're not going to walk into a boardroom with a graphing calculator. So, hey, here's Excel. And then one year I was like, hey, there's this cool thing like Tableau you can use. So that really brought me to where I am now. So I teach statistics, and we train also in Tableau. That's out of the way. So that said, I have to wrap my mind around a concept before I can teach it. And because one thing that I've noticed with level of detail, and honestly, there's still, I still have to play around with them sometimes to get them to do what I want them to do. But with level of detail calculations, what I don't see a lot of is explanation of why it does what it does. And that's kind of all you need to know to be able to write one. Otherwise, it's kind of just hit or miss. And if you've ever, and you can tell me in the chat if you are familiar, and I can pull up chat, can I? Heck yeah, I love this because I want interactive. With our Atlanta Tableau user group, I can't see people in there. Like it's actually, we're the only panelists, so I can't see the participants. So this is really, really cool that we can do this. So if you guys want to chat, like your experience with LODs, feel free to just jump in. And if you want to pull up Tableau and a Superstore data set and play around with some of these calcs, knock yourself out. But the bottom line is you got to know how Tableau works to write any calculation, much less a level of detail calculation. So let's get into what that means. Tableau aggregates its measures to whatever measure you put in the field. So, and it's going to naturally aggregate to a sum unless you've written that calculation as an aggregation previously. So, but at any, like a sales in Superstore, it's going to automatically sum. I know this sounds basic, especially if you're working in Tableau a while, but I'm going to be demonstrating back and forth here. But this is what I'm talking about. We've got this aggregation. What is Tableau doing? All of the rows in this data set, it's taking all of the sales from all of the rows and summing that amount right there. That's what that is. So when you bring a dimension into any of those highlighted places, and I'll go back to my slide in a second, when you bring a dimension in there, it slices the data by that dimension. Whoops. So long as, I did not mean to make that an attribute. So long as, there we go, you bring it to one of those places, your level of granularity or level of detail, that's what this means, changes based on the dimensions in your view. So we're slicing by those dimensions. One way to make this easier to see, and I'm going to rebuild this, is if you look at a table, you can see automatically, okay, yes, those are the sales in region. Anna, could you go on? Well, if I bring in marketing channel, unless I do, I go to analysis and I add in subtotals, I can no longer see the regional total. And if I want to build a bar chart and I want to compare my marketing channel within the region to the total regional total, I can't do that with the way Tableau aggregates, because automatically Tableau is slicing by the dimensions in the view. So going back to this now, dimensions and sets, by the way, are defining how that measure is aggregated. So from there, we have to figure out, well, what's the workaround? What do we do if we want to show something different? We can, if we need to add a dimension that's not in our view or ignore a dimension in our view, we can create, everyone says there's 3 level detail calculations, and technically there are, but I like to break it out in 4 because table scoped calculations, by the way, they are fixed, but they work like fixed, but I'm gonna break those as a 4th piece. Today, I'm going to talk mostly about fixed level of detail calculations. So that's the ones that you're going to use most of the time, if not already. And that's what, from include and exclude, a lot of times there's a fixed LOD for that. So I'm going to talk mostly about fixed. So these are I don't like to read bullet point. I am not one of those teachers. Just, you can read my slides. I'm not going to read all of them. But the other thing I wanted to point out here is that think of LOD as basically you're defining a, hey, go, like a logic statement almost, go find this. And so Tableau finds this number, joins it back into your data, and creates this new measure, or actually it can be a dimension as well. So this new column is back into your data. So syntax, we're going to do a lot of these. I'm going to show you some of these hands-on. I'm going to show you using the my Tableau. So again, if you want to open up Tableau, knock yourself out. But the bottom line is you have to understand syntax and how to write it. From there, after a while, when you wrap your mind around the logic of what Tableau is doing, this is going to be a piece of cake. You have keywords, fixed, include, exclude. Those are telling Tableau, are we going to fix on a dimension? Are we going to just include a dimension that's not in our view, or exclude something that's in our view? And I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. So an example would be, I want to calculate sales per customer. Let's say customer's not in our view. We're just looking at regional data, but we want to see we want to compare the regions based on their sales per customer. Well, we can do that without customer in our view by using those curly brackets. You've seen these, they look like sideways mustaches. And hey, I always wondered, what are those for? Well, they're for fixed LODs. That's literally all it's ever used for on my keyboard. I'm not a writer, so I don't know if there's any other reason why you would use those. But for me, it's fixed LOD or any LOD. So we use the curly brackets. We define which LOD we're using. We define the dimension or dimensions, because you can have multiple, an aggregation, and a measure. So let's get into the nitty gritty so you don't break your dashboards. Fixed LODs, and like I said, I'm going to focus on these more than include and exclude, because fixed LODs are always going to calculate independent of any dimensions in your view. So that means that if doesn't matter what's in your view, Tableau is going to calculate this LOD based on whatever dimension you define. So you can make it more or less granular. Really, really important thing. And I'm going to keep repeating this. Hopefully this will drill in your mind that they do execute in the order of operations before dimension filters. Has anyone broken your dashboard because you forgot to because you didn't know that? That's like one big thing I talk to a lot of consultants. I broke my dashboard and I'm like, did you break it? Or are you using a fixed LOD and you have a dimension filter? Because if you need that dimension filter to execute before the LOD, you either need to change the LOD or put that dimension filter onto context. And they're like, oh, and then it fixes it. So it's an easy fix, an easy workaround, but that's going to be the number one thing you're going to run into when you work with LODs. So here's that order of operations that I've talked about. If you've only been working with Tableau for a short amount of time, I would Google this. So Tableau order of filter operations, print it out and put it up on your wall. Because once you start developing in Tableau, this comes into play so often. So numbers aren't working, check your order of operations. So that fixed LOD is going to execute right here before a dimension filter. And we're going to bring this up in a bit. Include and exclude are after. So let me show you some examples in Tableau. I did get a lot of the ideas. I'm going to give everyone shout outs of where I get my ideas from, because there are so many awesome people in this community who have helped create this immense amount of resources so you can learn how to do anything in Tableau. I'm going to first talk about Foard. He is actually, I think he actually created LODs. He worked for Tableau. He doesn't anymore, but he talks about them. You can find his TC, maybe it was 18 talk on these. And I liked how he highlighted his dimensions in his explaining it all as blue. So I did that. So I stole his idea, but he really does a good job explaining how these work. So let's talk about this example. We're going to have marketing channel in region in our view, and we're going to create this calculation. I already have it done because I don't want to take too long, but I'm going to show you how this works. So we want to ask the question, how do regional profits by marketing channel compare to overall regional profits? So notice I'm going to take these out so you can see this. So notice I have region and marketing channel in my view, and I brought in profit. So nothing LOD just yet. I do have my subtotals turned on so you can see the numbers and how they align. Now I created a calculation that is profit by region. And I do have the window open and there's a dog barking. So if you can hear, I can, sorry. So here you can see I've created this calculation, profit by region. So this says for each region, calculate the sum of profits. So again, you have to have a dimension, and your measure has to have an aggregation. So if this is an aggregated measure already, it's not going to work in this. So there are workarounds though. So we have this fixed on region, meaning ignore marketing channel, just give me the profit for the region. So that's what it's doing right here. So I'm going to click OK and bring this into my table to see what it does. And the totals right here, these are literally the profit for this region. So central region, this is the total profit. It is not including marketing channel at all. It's completely ignoring it. Well, what can you do with this? You can compare now marketing channel, each marketing channel within that region, and see how it compares to total overall profit. You could even build this into a chart. Like if you wanted to make a bar and bar chart, and I did that here. So now you can see within each region, how is each marketing channel, how much does each marketing channel contribute? And you can see some really interesting insights here, like right here in the Northeast, our profit's doing okay, but here, what's happening with trade show and events? That's a huge decline there. So I colored the profit separately so you can see how it's contributing, or in this case, taking away. This is one of those things. So I like to show why you would want to do this too. And this is for one of those examples that I got, because I remember getting a question. I was teaching a group and they were working with wine, actually. So I get to teach the coolest stuff now. I mean, I'm like, I couldn't touch that topic in high school, but hey, we can talk wine now. So we're talking about wine, and they were looking at the distribution of certain brands at certain stores. And they wanted to see how their brand compared to an overall sales. Here you go. You need an LOD. You can also use an exclude LOD for this, and I'll show you that at the end too. So they'll both work. But this is one of those. Let me go back to another example. So if I had switched that and I still had marketing channel and region in my view, but this time I wanted to say fixed marketing channel. I want to fix sales on marketing channel. This is going to do the opposite. It's just going to give me, hey, what's the profit for the marketing channel independent of the region? So I'll show you that one. And y'all are welcome to my slides after this too, if you're interested. So now we flipped them, and actually you won't notice it if I switch my pills here. So if I switch my pills, you're going to go, oh, this doesn't look right. But if you look closely, you'll see that, and then I'll switch them back. You'll see within each region, like I had in the previous channel, within each region, the profit for marketing channel is still the same. But that marketing channel number, that is, for example, the 99,000 here is going to be the same for direct mail each time. So you can see that here. So when you switch them, now you see those numbers. So it's going to work either way. You can also, as I showed you in the very beginning, it doesn't have to be fixed on just one dimension. You can fix this on several dimensions. And this was sale. What did I do? Yeah, I'll open this one up so you can see this calculation. So let's say you want to know how the monthly average customer sales, and this is, I know, very specific, but I was trying to think of examples that somebody might want multiple dimensions fixed on. So you're looking at monthly average customer sales. And I did change this to an average, but how do monthly average customer sales compare by region? So regionally, we can look at sales, but what if I want to know, again, oh, I said monthly here, and I said, sorry, this should be weekly. I'll change my title. This would be weekly average sales by region. So this fix the calculation. Let me open this up a little bit more so you can see it. So for each customer and week of order date, compute the sum of sales. And then, so this was weekly, sorry about that. And then in my pill up here, when I brought that to my view, it was originally a sum. Now I summed it in the calculation, and that's because, and you got to think about averages. Sometimes, you got to think about averages as adding and then dividing. So we need to sum it up first. Sometimes in a fixed LOD, by the way, you'll find that changing to an average is going to do nothing because you're only dividing by 1. But in this case, our dimension, we have 2 dimensions, and we want to find the average customer sales, average weekly customer sales. So when you change that pill to an average, it does change. I'm like trying to make sure I cover everything, so I keep looking at my watch. All right, so Andy Kriebel, the amazing Zen master, had a great way of saying it, and you've heard me say this already, but I want to show you this. I don't know if he started it, but he created this slide, and I told him I always give him credit for it. So he created this sentence that says, for each whatever dimension you are using, compute the whatever the aggregation is and whatever metric you're using. So for, in this case, for each customer and region, compute the minimum order date. Does that make sense? Just gonna mold that around as a sentence. So we're thinking of it as, okay, I want the minimum order date in this case. For who or for what? Okay, only calculated on customer and region. Ignore everything else. And that's what it gives you here, because notice this is giving you the dimension of date is in our view, but it's not calculating on date. It's only viewing it that way. And then we're looking at these calculations over time. All right, so what other reasons would we want to use an LOD? Okay, not just comparing part to whole, but we could also look at isolating duplicate records. Now, I don't have an example in my Superstore because mine's nice and clean training data, but I was working with, a lot of times when I'm training, I'm working with their data. So, and I can't show you that because it's a client, but I was working with a group, an awesome group, and they gave me data that was lots of duplications. So, and I'm just, think of it as, I wrote this, is we have regional sales, and they had regional sales duplicating for every state. So we had, in the South, you have like Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and they have the state sales that are different. But then think of it having regional sales were repeated because they're in the same region. Well, if you don't know that's happening, by the way, be careful because this happens a lot. And those duplicate, so let's like think of it as triplicate, for example. So when we're summing regional sales, then it's the wrong number. So a way around it, if you can't clean the data, if it's not, I can't remodel it, just one workaround, because I know we could use average as well, but you could also fix on region and just create your own pill for regional sales. So that way you have a new calculation for regional sales that you can always use and fix it on region. So for each region, just give me the max sales. And then that way that sales number is no longer duplicated. Another good use case for an LOD, in this case a fixed LOD, would be to find some point in time. I took this example, not the exact example, but this idea from Kevin and Kevin Flurledge have a great blog post, and I will put that in chat. I have it in the end with some resources as well. But they have, I think it was last month. No, it's still February. It's this month that they wrote a blog post, I think, of the 20 most common or 20 useful LODs. And this is the idea of one of them, and they called it point in time, so I stole their words. But if you want to find some point in time or return some date, fixed LODs will do that for you as well. Because remember, in one of the first slides, I told you fixed LODs return a measure or a dimension. So we can do that here. So if you're working with hospital data, for example, I have a lot of clients that are working in healthcare. And so if they're trying to find the most recent date a patient was admitted, you can create a fixed LOD. Notice this LOD is a nested LOD, nested with a logic statement. So it's saying fixed on patient, find the max. Well, it's going to be the max admit date, but within that calculation, we have parentheses that say if status equals admit, then return that admit date. So that could be really, really helpful. I have another example in Superstore because I think that one's super helpful. So this one, if you played with Superstore, you know, tables are just not so great. And in this Superstore data, I want to know, okay, well, which customer, or what was the most recent date a customer purchased a table? Because I want to know, because I might want to go back and talk to those people first. Like, okay, are you happy? Are you satisfied? We've kind of fixed some of our processes. So I've created a calculation here that is the last table order date. I'll open this one up. And it works as the same logic as I just showed you. And by the way, if you want me to chat you any of these calculations, like I'll give you this, but if I can actually really quickly copy paste these, if you're interested, you just have to tell me in chat real fast, chat me that one. So this one, again, same concept. It's just saying I'm fixing on the customer name. I want to know the order date of the max order date, which is the most recent for if the product subcategory is equal to tables. So that's what this one looks like. Another point in time. Oh, you want that one? Okay, I'll get that to you too. Some folks said that they wanted that. So I'll grab that real fast. The next one I'm going to show you came from Bethany Lyons, and that's another great blog post, and I have that in my resources here at the end. And I'll chat this to everyone since several of you said the same thing. So she was talking about more of a cohort analysis. If you want to see which customer cohort contributed to the most overall profit, then we first needed to create a calculation here of the customer first purchase date. So I created that here. Easy one, because you're just looking at, because we're going by year here, so we don't have to do any date trunk to find some particular date part. It's just easy enough. We want the fixed on customer name, minimum order date. Order date's already in my view by year. So we're just going to build this by year. So I'll just go ahead and chat all of them. So that way it's super easy. I'm so used to chatting to my classes. That actually is one thing that makes virtual so much easier, because it's so, when I'm teaching, you're like, hey, I'm just going to chat you this. So then we can kind of move forward instead of just people are kind of looking like, how do I do this calculation again? Where were the parentheses? So makes it a lot easier. So that would be a customer cohort. And I just dropped that calculation on color after building this. And then we can see, wow, those customers that we attracted in 2018, they keep coming back. Whatever we were doing to attract customers in 2018 and keep them, maybe we need to do that a little bit better as we're going along. So, or maybe there's just something different about the customers. So I'm a big fan, because my undergrad was marketing, even though I've done a lot with analysis. I do have, there's a place in my heart for anything marketing and segmentation, which brings me to my next example. You can also create a LOD based on some criteria. So if you want to segment your groups based on some criteria, this would be one way to do it. And this one says, and notice it's nested again in a logic statement. If, and then curly brackets, for each customer, count the product subcategory, and then close the curly brackets, equals 1, then now the then 1 else 0 could have been anything. Could have been true, it could have been false. It's just a logic. It's just a logic of a Boolean yes or no, in, out. So in this case, you are just looking at which customers only bought 1. So why would I want to do that? Well, let's look at this example. Remember tables. They're kind of bringing us down. And if you haven't looked at this data, then I'm happy to send it to you too, because you just pull up any Tableau Superstore data, and we've got some issues with tables. So let's find out which customers only bought 1 tables, because that means then they're maybe not repeat customers. And we also might want to compare their behavior to repeat customers. So if we're going to segment our groups based on how many bought 1, I'm going to create this calculation. I called this non-return customers table. And then just like the one I just showed you, and I'll chat this to you as well. It's in my slide. It is fixed on customer name, counting product subcategory, and then in making it equal to 1. And then now I'm wondering why. Oh, actually, this one's not table. I think I wrote my question wrong. I just realized I didn't define this one as table. I'm thinking of a different example. But this is which customer bought only 1 of a product subcategory. Sorry, this one is not table. I just had to reread my logic here. This is just buying 1 thing of a product subcategory. Sorry about that. So they've only bought from 1 product subcategory. They're not buying any others. All right, so wait, let me go back to that, make sure I covered all of those. All right, so my next is my favorite example because I like to spice it up a little bit. And I told you I'll come back to this. Order of operations, super important. Of course, being a math teacher, I'm like, hey, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Do you remember how important that was in school? And your teacher's like, it was always funny to me when I mean, honestly, the brightest of the bright kids would put in like, you know, -5 squared in their calculator. And Ms. Foard, why is it -25? And I'm like, because they're like, because the negative times the negative is a positive. Why is it giving negative? And I'm like, you're forgetting your order of operations. What the calculator is doing is squaring 5 and then multiplying by -1, that negative in front of 5. You got to put parentheses around the -5. And even simple things like that, by the brightest kids, they will make mistakes like that. So don't think order of operation errors won't happen to you, because they happen to all of us. Here, that fixed LOD, again, is going to execute before the dimension filters. So this is where we're going to see this. We're going to do this one together if you want. This is a, we're going to visualize the monthly trend of profit per order by region. But I'm probably going to do a little quickly because I want to make sure I got enough time here. So, all right. So my order of operations, I want the monthly trend of profit per order by region. So I'm going to bring in order date and look at just a continuous month. And I brought it to the wrong place, wasn't thinking. And I want profit by order. And I think I already maybe created this on profit per order. I mean, if not, let's do it together. I did not. So let's create profit per order. And I'll chat it to you if you want. We got our sideways mustaches. So we're going to say, okay, to get profit per order, order is defined by order ID. So we're going to say for each order or order ID, calculate the sum of profit. Okay, and I'll chat it to you if you want that. And this is going to go on rows so we can see that profit over time. And there you go. Now, let's say we want to add a region filter and we want to be able to see this by region. I'm going to drop region to filter. By the way, if you want to use a filter, it's an end user filter. I always tell this to people, if your data might change that goes into the filter, always use all. Don't just click on all of these, because what if we add another region? Then it's not going to update with the data. So we want to use all. I'm going to click apply or an OK. Show filter. I'm going to make this a drop down. And all right, so now we're finding the monthly trend of orders of profit per order. And here's a nice little trick if you haven't seen this. And now because somebody else might come along and not realize we're only looking at the Pacific region. So I really want to make sure they know. So monthly trend of profit per order in you can insert whatever you used for your filter. So now it says in the Pacific region. It's one of my favorite little tricks there. And now it's going to update. Well, I'm not going to go through the task of going through and figuring out that these numbers are wrong, but they're wrong. I'm just going to tell you, because what we're looking at right now, because I have a fixed LOD in here, is Tableau is calculating the profit per order on a macro level. Basically, think of it as for the entire data set, we have profit per order. And then after that, and some orders, by the way, are in one region versus another. And some orders might be in both regions. So you might have the same order ID in 2 different regions. So this could be an issue. Adding the region filter, Tableau naturally is applying this after the LOD. So we're technically might be filtering out the wrong things. Let's find out if this changes by changing the filter. If we want to filter by region and then have the Tableau execute the LOD second, then we need to change this filter to a context filter. So let's add it to context and look at that, it changed. This is one way just to check to see if you need the dimension filter to execute before the LOD, then you have to put that filter onto context, or you could change that calculation to an include or exclude calculation if you could. So speaking of, and I'm trying to make sure I don't go too long here, I want to wrap up fixed LODs and then just talk a little bit about include and exclude, and then also table scoped. So just to reiterate what I said about fixed, they're calculating the, they're calculating the, yes, I got someone's question and I'll get to that at the end here too. So the fixed LOD calculates on whatever dimension you specify. So it doesn't matter what's in the view, just calculating on whatever you're specifying. And you can make, so that can add to your granularity or have less granularity. This is also applied before the dimension filter. So in this order of operations, you have to think about where it goes. And so when I change that dimension filter to a context filter, and I'll show you that order of operations again and again, then it actually changed. It's like putting parentheses around. If you're like adding an enumerator and then need to divide, remember you have to put parentheses around that numerator. Well, adding that, in this case, putting that dimension filter onto context was like putting parentheses around your expression. So, and finally, fixed LODs can be a measure or dimension. You saw that it became, we could use make profit per region, for example, and we also made it a date. So the include LOD, so let's say we already have dimensions in our view and you want to also include another calculation or another dimension into the calculation that is not in your view, then we can create an include LOD. Now, because of the way how versatile fixed LODs are, we could also create a fixed LOD on those 2 dimensions. There are a few use cases of using include instead of fixed. And one of those being, of course, if you can't put your filter on context, for whatever reason, you're not using a context filter and you want it applied after dimension filters. And then also, yeah, that's okay. So my example is, same example as before, we have marketing channel in our view. We create this calculation, instead of saying fixed region, we're saying include the region. when we calculate sum of profit. So what this does is returns the combined profit for marketing channel and region. So it's on the marketing channel and region, not the same as what fixed did. It also changed the aggregation, or if you change the aggregation, you can find the average regional profits, which you wouldn't have been able to do that with a fixed LOD. Let me show you what I mean. So here I have marketing channel in my view, just like I said in that example, and I created an include calculation, profit by region, and I called it include on it. And it just looks like this. So including region, calculate the sum of profit. So that means no matter what other dimension I put in my view, it's going to calculate including region. And if I bring up region into my view here, you'll see that these numbers look the same with profit and profit by region, because right now they're aggregating at the same level. Okay, so your your include LOD is aggregating on marketing channel and region. Doesn't matter if region's in your view because it's including it. Whereas our regular calculation is aggregating on profit and in marketing channel and region because they're in your view. If you change both of these to average, you'll see that they're different. This one didn't change at all. And that's because we're already down to that level of detail. So and let me go back and show you that again. This was the sum. This is taking all of the profit in the region and that marketing channel and adding it all up. And if we were to divide by all the marketing channels, or by that particular marketing channel, there's only one, it's direct mail in that region. So dividing by 1 gives you the same average. So we can see that here. Whereas this average is taking all of the profit in region and marketing channel and dividing by all of the rows using that marketing channel, giving you a different aggregation. If I had more time, I'd explain that a little more. Just a couple more and then I'm good. Sorry, I'm a little bit longer than I thought. So that order of operations again, include and then exclude is executing after dimensions. So you don't have to worry about the dimension filter executing in the wrong place. Finally, exclude, just like include, is dependent on dimensions already in your view. And then this time though, it's going to ignore them. So let me show you an example of where I created that. So if I create this LOD profit excluding region, here we go. It looks just like what you saw there. I said exclude region, but I have marketing channel, here we go, and region in my view. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. And I actually cut that off a little bit, sorry. But the calculation here is going to exclude region, even though it's in my view. Well, where is that going to be helpful? Well, kind of like the fixed LOD I showed you in the beginning, you can now compare that profit in the marketing channel in that region to the total marketing channel profit. Something like I just showed here. In this case, I did profits and product subcategory. So you can, again, this is very similar to the fixed example, but instead of fixing it, I'm excluding. So in this case, I'm comparing product subcategory total profits to overall category profits. And I wouldn't be able to do that. Let me see, this was profit excluding product subcategory. I wouldn't be able to do that without an LOD. In this case, was exclude. Okay, and then finally, table scopes are the last ones. And honestly, this was my exclude example. Honestly, they're just fixed LODs, okay? They work like fixed LODs. And let me get to table scoped. And so the only difference is they're table scope, meaning they're at the row level. So you're not going to define a dimension. You're going to use the curly brackets and they're going to return the aggregation on the row level. So for example, if you need the entire data sets profit and to compare it to regional profit, it doesn't matter what's in your view. You can use this example. So using curly brackets, sum of profit, notice there's no dimensions in view to return the entire table profit for the entire. And also you'll see it sometimes with fixed with no dimension, same thing. Okay, so just we're running out of time. So I'm gonna just hit these limitations so y'all can have questions. But table, because of the order of operations, you may have tried a table calculation in your LOD, doesn't want to work because they execute at different times. Again, order of operations. Oh, and yes, ATTR is not supported. So you can't call it an attribute to make it a aggregation. Then also your dimensions in your calculation, within the calculation, need to come from the same data source. And then there is one thing, it just occurred to me. This LODs will also help fix your that warning or that error that you cannot mix aggregate and non-aggregate. What does it say? Cannot mix non-aggregate and aggregate. Everyone's seen it. You've always seen it. And then that's because LODs, you can create a calculation that's an LOD and it aggregates. But as you notice, when you bring them to your view, they are not aggregated. And this one's an attribute. Let's see, because it's exclude comes in as an attribute. You can't use attributes, but it'll come in as an attribute. So notice I can change the aggregation of an LOD. So if you create an LOD as your aggregation and use LODs in your calculation, you can use that and mix it with a non-aggregated value in another calculation and it'll work. So that's it. Those are my quick rundown. Don't forget your order of operations. And the resources are here. And I'll take any questions at whatever time. We have like a minute.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. That was an awesome presentation. If you guys have your camera on, let's give a round of applause for Anna. But yes, we'll have just a few minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes to answer any last questions you guys may have. Feel free to go off mute to ask your question, or you can just submit it in the chat right here. And I've gotten a few questions about if this is being recorded. Yes, we are recording this, and once Tableau has it uploaded, we will share that with everyone. So. And
can I don't know how y'all do it. If I send you the deck, do you put a
yes, I can share that. Yes, yeah. So if you want to share that with me, I will make sure that is included in the email.
And I apologize, some of that was really quick, but I was hoping to get the groundwork in the beginning of how the LOD works before I launch into my fast talking.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, if we don't have any questions right now, again, thank you so much, Anna, for speaking today. And if any questions come in later, I'll be sure to forward them your way.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you need anything, I'll stick around for a little while for questions in the chat. However you want to do it. And thanks.
Anna.
Sounds great. Oh, yes, Juan, do you have a question there?
Yes, in fact, I was playing yesterday with some LODs, and I got here in front of me. So I'm trying to use like 3 variables, like to calculate the. I'm calculating the average. It's called response per login time, and I'm using the LOD. But when I want to do the calculation like with date ranges. So select, I don't know, like 1 day or select 1 week. But I noticed that when I move the date range, the LOD doesn't match the average. I don't know if I probably have to set up some time. I don't know if that might be feasible, or if I can send a screenshot or something.
Definitely check your filters first. Do you have filters in the view? That's the first thing. Because if you have dimension filters and you're using a fixed LOD, then they might be executing the wrong way. And that's why I was showing that context filter. So check that first. See if changing a dimension filter to context, for example, changes anything and fixes anything. And then if not, it might be the LOD itself. You might be aggregating incorrectly, or you might want to make sure it's a sum on the inside and then an average on the outside. One of those things. I'd really have to see it to know for sure, but I would check them.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, at this time, we are going to pivot over for a short recap of our annual TUG survey. One of our fellow TUG Advisory Council members, William Collins, is going to give a quick recap before we do our Makeover Thursday exercise. So go ahead, William.
Great. Hey, Anna, could you stop sharing your slide? There we go. Thank you. And thank you so much, Anna, for a great presentation. Always, we're always looking for great presenters, and you definitely hit the mark there. So thank you so much for joining us today. As Rachel said, I'm going to do a quick overview of the survey results. And I'm going to do it non-visually because we do have 4 or 5 people that have actually taken the survey results and put them in a visualization. So thank God, because I am not a visual specialist when it comes to Tableau. I'm glad others are there to do that. But a couple things. One is around the survey. We sent it out late January. And we do this for a couple of reasons. One is it's always great to get feedback from the group. We want to make sure that we're representing the community the right way, and just want to get that feedback. Rachel has mentioned the advisory council. We formed this probably about 1.5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, and it's just a group of the community that has raised their hand and said they want to be part of this. And so, part of our task as the advisory council is to try to put these TUGs on, try to deliver great content like what we saw from Anna today, and really deliver to meet your expectations. So part of us being able to do that is understanding what those expectations are and what you want to see. So that's why we wanted to do the survey. If at any time above and beyond the survey, if you have feedback for one of us, please reach out and let us know what you're thinking. If you have ideas, if you want to be part of the advisory council, please do that, because we are always looking to try to make this better. So we did the survey in late January. We only got about 58 respondents, but we really appreciate those 58 respondents. So some of the data that I'm going to share is directional at best. It's probably not statistically significant, but we take directional information and try to make the best out of it. So one of the first questions was, why do you come to TUGs? And really I'm going to kind of give top 2 answers in all these things just to provide it as a summary. And the top 2 answers were to learn a new skill. And then the second one was expand knowledge base, which almost kind of fall hand in hand. But the interesting thing about the learning new skill is what we're hearing, and you'll hear this a little bit more in the summary, is that I think people really like to see the how to do something, not just learn a new concept, but really show, have people show how to do something. And Anna, you definitely did that today. So you definitely hit the top mark on that. But learn a new skill, expand knowledge base. Second is from an interest perspective of the types of presentations, the types of content that you want to see. Top 3 answers were around best practices. What is the best way to do something? There's 10 ways that you could do LODs. Anna showed you one or multiples of those, but you probably have other ways to do them as well. And so what we want to be able to do is at least plant the seed of one of the best ways to do it, but there's lots of different ways that you can do it. The second one is around demos and lightning sessions, similar to what we just did here. in showing a certain feature or showing a product. Sometimes it's not a Tableau speaker that we have, and really trying to show some of that. So that was number 2. And then the third one was new features and releases, of course, around Tableau specifically. Some suggestions were more hands-on interactive sessions, where maybe you are actually doing the same work that that Anna showed today, and actually building an LOD where you go so that you can learn it and do it and ask questions. And then tips and tricks. Getting into a little bit more of the demographics around people. Average, again, of the 58 people that responded was about 1 to 3 years experience using Tableau. So, you know, I'll call it kind of early to mid-level understanding of the tool and experience in using it. So I think that's a good sweet spot to for this community. From a standpoint of the type of companies, I'm sorry, the proficiency around Tableau capabilities. So top one, we asked the question of how proficient are you in desktop, server, public, and then prep. So definitely the predominant proficiency was in desktop. That would, you know, that kind of makes sense because that's where majority of people spend their time. And then we had server, and then it was around public, and then last was around prep. And there's another instance here that we talked a little bit about prep and maybe learning a little bit more about that. And then just looking at some of the demographics of the folks that responded around titles, kind of top 2 titles was data analyst and BI analyst. And the second one was a data science analyst, which has just a little bit of different spin when you look at that through the lens of a kind of a normal data analyst job day to day, and then what a data science data analyst does. And then the third was really a tie around business manager, data engineer, and data scientist. From an organization perspective, kind of size and type, we had a really good distribution around the types of organizations. You kind of really almost evenly, a good bell curve around private, public, state, and nonprofit. Really not very many, kind of startup type companies and kind of self, 1 or 2 person type organizations. And then we really skewed heavily to the large organizations. So, 10,000 and above was top, and then 1,000 to 10,000 was second on that. So skewing fairly large organizations. Again, good results, very directional, really trying to understand how we can take this information now as an advisory council and just try to improve the community. So please keep sharing. When we send these out, please fill them out, even if you don't think that they pertain to you. Fill them out and just give us your feedback. Rachel, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, William. And so for the remaining 20 minutes or so, we are going to go over our Makeover Thursday exercise, if you will. So we shared this annual survey data with the group and gave you the opportunity to do something with that data, create a viz, learn from it. And so we have 5 submissions that we've picked to go over today. And before we get started, I want to give a major shout out to everyone who did participate in this exercise. Please let us know if you enjoyed this activity and or if you have ideas for future activities to do during our TUG meetings. We'd love to hear it. And to keep this fun and engaging, we're going to do a little bit of a competition, like I mentioned earlier. So we have our 5 vizzes. And then at the very end, I'm going to launch a poll for you to vote on your favorite viz. And the individual that wins will be mailed a surprise Tableau swag. So very exciting. And as we transition into this portion, the way it's going to work, one of our fellow TUG Advisory Council members, Colin, is going to screen share each viz, and our council members, me, Colin, and others, if you'd like to share a few thoughts on each submission, feel free to do so. You can put it directly in the chat, or if you want to go off mute, we love to hear your thoughts. And feel free to take notes as we go along, because the poll is labeled Viz 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's how we're going to do it. And Colin, if you want to go ahead and put up the first one, I believe it's your submission. Is that correct?
Yes, make this easy. All right, so I'm sharing now. Let me know if you can see the screen.
Looks good.
All right, perfect. So basically, I think with this Viz challenge, really a big part of the challenge was actually the data. If you take a look, this is what the data looked like when we got it out of Google Sheets. So you can see a lot of the responses were it was a very wide format. All of the different questions. I think really the challenge here was getting the data into a form that was really Tableau friendly. And so I don't know how many of you guys have been on a few of these, but I gave my presentation last October about how to use Alteryx with Tableau together. So I think it would only make sense for me to go in and do that. So I'll admit I did a little bit of pre-prepping in Excel to kind of break some of those questions apart. Then I did some pivot transformations, some transposing, some formulas, some filters, and just brought that all together to create a nice little data source that I would go in and use in my Viz. So what I really tried to do is get everything on one page, and I'm a big fan of the dashboard actions that Tableau has. So I started up top with a map, and then you've kind of got all the different questions laid out here. I really like sort of the barbell chart here, or the half barbell chart, I guess you want to call it, that shows the different interest categories. And you can see, like William was saying, we have all of the different titles and reasons for attendance and proficiency levels as well. And so because I kind of was able to knit everything into one tidy data source, the entire Viz is interactive. So if we wanted to take a look at the data analyst's responses, we can just click on data analyst, and we can see now, maybe just looking at proficiency, they skew a little bit more experienced in Tableau desktop, and a little bit less so on the prep side. So that's kind of some interesting insights. And you can see, the data analysts are really looking for those lightning talks and best practices and things of that nature. If we wanted to see just, okay, let's look at some of these larger company folks, see kind of what kind of titles we're getting, see how that all fits together. So really what I was trying to do is make an interactive visualization that allows the user to go in and click around and kind of do what they needed to do to get a lot of different insights without having all these different data sources together.
That's awesome. Feel free to put your thoughts in the chat here. We'd love to hear what everyone else thinks or what caught their eye first. First thing that caught my eye is how organized this is, Colin. I appreciate that you are sharing so many different stories all at the same time. And it's pretty clean and not very cluttered. So that's the first thing that I noticed. And you guys will kind of see a trend moving forward of using, I think it's called the part to whole chart below for the different titles. And I think that's a great way to kind of share that story. So looking in the chat here, someone said they love the zip code heat map and they like how interactive it is. Awesome work, Colin.
Yeah, those density maps, I think that was a relatively new feature within the last couple of years. That really changed the visual on your maps. I really like how that all kind of works together. And what I kind of tried to do here as well is, if say we wanted to just look at the Dallas area, I think that all, yeah, there we go. It all kind of updated to just see the Dallas responses, and I think an Oklahoma got snuck in there as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of using the density maps in one of the newer Tableau versions.
Very cool. Awesome.
Right.
Okay, let's go into Viz 2. So this is a submission by Raphael. My initial thoughts looking at this, first off, I really like that he put the total number of survey responses at the top of the Viz. Kind of helps remind us, give us some perspective. I also think it's really clean and concise. You can see what 3 top stories he's trying to tell with this visualization. And Raphael, if you're on, you are more than welcome to jump in and give some thoughts as to how you created this. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Colin?
Yeah, I really like, kind of like you said, the way that you can kind of see how well organized it is. And of course, now that we're doing a live demo, my computer is slowing down. But I really like this feature up here using the filter here. So you can basically select the different tool and then everything else will kind of filter to it. So let's just say, we're looking at desktop, but looking at prep, it's interesting how we kind of put all of that in one visualization, but gives the user the ability to go in and click through and kind of get to the information that they want. I like just kind of like the overall format of it and kind of how this in particular gives you a lot of different pieces of information, all within the same chart.
Yes, awesome. And I see in the chat, someone said that they love the fancy reference line. I'm guessing is that on the left there, or, oh, it's there. I see. Very cool. And it does change with the drop-down bar, doesn't it?
Yep. Exactly.
Very cool. We love to see it. Okay, let's move into Viz 3. I hope you guys are taking notes on each of these. So this is a Viz by Iman, and my first reaction, I love the creativity that went into the design and colors of this Viz. It's very unique. I've not seen something like this, so I really like that. And I think just like glancing at it, I think it would be great to have a key of some sort maybe on the US map to clarify what each color means, but we can kind of, get the gist of what it means. And I like that he highlighted some key trends and findings from the survey data on the right. So, Colin, what are your thoughts?
This chart type on this map, it reminds me of a Tableau conference session. The last time it was in person, it was one of those sort of lightning 20-minute sessions in the main area where you put on the headsets and everyone's around you, but you can't hear them. So they kind of showed how to make maps with different shapes like this. And I really like how that is. I like the minimalist look on it. Down here on the bottom right, I really like how this is formatted. It's not just straight up and down. You kind of go back and forth. It keeps it really visually interesting. And I really like the spreads here, how you can kind of see the different spread on these box and whisker plots here. So I think that this is a really nice Viz. It doesn't kind of, he took the sort of the opposite approach that I did, where I'm just trying to throw as much information on as possible, whereas Iman kind of took it and like selectively curated it and made it really visually well done. So I really like how Iman did it.
Yes, I agree. In the chat, someone says, ooh, a hex map, go Iman. Homer says he loves the box plots, gives a lot of summary stats in one diagram, which I agree. Great job, Iman. So that is Viz number 3. Moving on into Viz number 4. So this is a submission by Josh Wilson. My initial thoughts, I love the use of the icons on the left, highlight key findings and trends from the survey in a concise but also visually appealing way. I thought it also had a unique way of displaying the correlation between the proficiency and topic interest. And again, I thought it was very clean, concise, and I appreciate the use of keys and captions to explain the Viz.
Yeah, you took that right out of my mouth. The icons are awesome. They're really clean, and I really like the kind of the black look on all of them, and how the color palette across the entire dashboard it's really consistent, right? You've got the blue, the light blue, the gray, and the black. It's sort of all within that same palette, and so I think it's a really nice use of color across the board. I really like the map here, how we kind of turned off the background. And just kind of showed with like a transparent background and how it kind of all fits together. It really shows you how we certainly appreciate our attendees from Massachusetts. So if any of you guys are on the call, way to go. But it shows that you're a little far from our central hub here, but we certainly appreciate it. And I really like how we did the map, how Josh did the map here, and the icons, the big numbers, really guiding your views, and then kind of the years of experience, being able to use the scrolling page filter through. This is really cool as well. So.
Oh, cool. I don't think I even saw that part. That's awesome.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah, there's a couple things, if I could point out. This is Josh.
Yes.
Hi.
Oh, hey, Josh.
Go ahead.
I'll turn my camera on so you can see me. So if you hover over some of the bands on the left, it should give you, and except for that one, that's the only one.
Of course.
It doesn't. But the other ones give you
VIT.
a little vision tooltip.
Very
you can
cool.
see kind of the split.
How it all comes together. That's nice. I like how you did that there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Very cool.
And then on the right, so the idea here is, so let's go back to the first one. I think it was
here.
The years of experience, maybe.
Yeah, perfect.
So what this does is you can kind of see, you can pick one of these different demographics, and then on the right, if you say, okay, what do like the people from less than 1 year, with less than 1 year of experience, what are they interested in relative to the average? If you click on that bar, then below it will show you, okay, it looks like maybe they're not overall they're maybe a little bit less interested on average than everyone else. If you go to like the 1 to 3 year group, kind of like they're like overly interested, so now they're like getting excited about Tableau, and they want to see everything. And then the 4 to 10 year group, you can see they're less interested in best practices because they're more experienced, but they want to know about the features, right? They want to know what's cool. So you can kind of play around with like, okay, what do different people want? And this can be helpful if maybe like if you go to like the organizations, I think you can, like, let's say you're planning a particular meeting that's targeted towards a certain group. You can say, okay, what are they interested in? Like I think nonprofits are more interested in demos or something. Maybe you wouldn't necessarily expect. This can give that level of insight into what people are looking for.
I think it should be this one here. There we go. Yeah, very cool.
So for whatever reason, so if you like have a, if you want to make people who, from nonprofits happy, make sure you put some demos into that particular meeting. Yeah,
and I really like your guidelines here, your 1-2. Helps the user kind of know, okay, I do this, then I do this.
Right. Awesome. Josh, you're getting lots of love in the chat. I went ahead and sent the links for everyone's viz over, and I'll do that for the last one as well, so you can go back and look at those examples. And then our final viz today, the 5th option. So this is a viz done by Kobe and Greta. And similar to what we've seen with the other vizzes, my eye caught the part to whole chart.
I had to show.
Why.
I had to show his
yes.
Tableau prep flow.
Yeah.
So Kobe put this all together, and he grabbed the data using Tableau prep. Just had to give him a shout out for that.
Yes, awesome job. But yeah, I don't know why my eye always catches the part to whole chart. I looked at that again. The map is also great. I love how it's similar to yours, Colin, where you're telling lots of different stories, but they're also pretty concise and clean. It's not too cluttered. And then I noticed if you scroll down, he also mentions what changes people recommend happening. I'm not sure if there's a better way to visualize that, but I do like that he brought that up in this viz.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And when I was doing my viz, I was trying to figure out how to put this in. And so it hurt my brain. And so I just didn't do it. So I was thinking of doing something like a word chart, but ended up just kind of sticking with it. But I was considering doing like a vision tooltip with these two, but I really like how he puts that in there. I also think that this section right here is really relevant, right? Because, you know, we're all here in the Tableau community. We're using Tableau on a daily, you know, basis, or whatever basis we're using it for. But oftentimes, right, we're giving this report to a manager, right? And the manager has a specific goal that they're trying to achieve with this visualization. And so Kobe here takes some of his insights and actually just pastes it onto the dashboard itself. So I really like how it was done there. Donut chart, also really nice look here. So yeah, I was kind of took a lot of similar approach that I did. So obviously I'm partial to that, but I really like some of the finer points that he put on there.
Hey, Rachel, this is William. I have a question for any of the folks that did the viz. This was all survey data. What is special about survey data that you had to think about as you were putting this visualizations together?
I mean, I'll take that one personally. I mean, for me, it was looking a lot at how, you know, different types of people, you know, really the job titles, I think was, or it wasn't exactly job title. I think the question was, regardless of your title, what do you do with data? Something like that. Was really being able to display how different people have different views, and how different people have different, you know, use cases for Tableau, and the different proficiency levels. So sort of like what Josh was saying there, is that, you know, you can see how the different employer types have different, you know, needs and desires for the for Tableau user groups. So to me, it's really interesting to be able to kind of parse out the different segments and seeing how there are differences between those groups. And, you know, as us on the TUG Advisory Council, you know, maybe we kind of can leverage that to create some sort of, you know, some more customized content, things of that nature.
Great, thanks.
If you don't mind me jumping in, this is Greta.
Oh, there you go.
I helped Kobe a little bit on his dashboard here, but I agree with Colin. It took probably just as much time getting the data ready to pull into Tableau using that Tableau prep as doing the dashboard. But once all the data was ready to pull in, it was more just trying to figure out what were the best charts to show, you know, whatever, like data analyst, it was easiest to use the tree map there, you know, easily shows that was the largest job title group. And then like donut charts aren't always recommended, but there were only 3 different categories there. So that was just a really easy way to show that. And then having it scrollable to show, like you were saying, I don't know what a better way would be, because there were so many different responses. Yeah. That way you're able to scroll through and see what comments that the participants had. So that's just a few comments that I had.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we had 2 categories, 2 or more categories of just kind of freehand, tell us what you think. And so that probably added an additional challenge to the data, in a sense of trying to get some consistency when somebody says, I want to see more of X, and they say it 3 different ways. So that's,
yeah, here's one for you, the job title. Not sure that was one that we put in our survey.
Yep. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to everyone who submitted a viz. I'm going to throw up the poll now. So vote on your favorite. We hope that this exercise was fun and gave you some inspiration for your next viz. I'm allowed just a few minutes or a few seconds for people to vote here.
Rachel, you might want to remind people who the viz was by number.
Yes. So viz number 1 was Collins. Viz number 2 was Raphael. Viz number 3 was Iman. Viz number 4 was Josh, and viz number 5 was Kobe and Greta. And I threw the links up in the chat as well, so feel free to click through to the different Tableau public pages. Okay, I'm gonna close it in 5 seconds. Okay. So it looks like our winner is Josh. If your camera is on, give some snaps and love to Josh for his awesome viz. Josh, I will connect with you after this so that we can mail you some Tableau swag. And so that concludes our meeting today. We hope you had fun, learned something new, leave inspired to go create even more vizzes. Feel free to stick around for a few minutes if you want to continue to network with some people on the chat. Speaking of surveys, I'm going to submit one last survey to tell us, let us know what you thought of today's TUG. And as a reminder, it was recorded, and I will email out the recording and any of the resources that Anna mentioned in that email as well. So thank you so much for joining today, and we hope to see you next month on, William, is March 11th, is that correct?
March 11th, 3 o'clock.
March 11th. Okay, thank you, everyone.